What's up guys, this is Danny from Rethink Peer-to-Peer Lending. Welcome back to yet another portfolio update on my channel. In today's video, we will review the performance of my peer-to-peer lending portfolio in June, as well as discuss some adjustments that I have made last month. As my travels across the Baltic states have recently come to an end, many of you might wonder how those encounters with close to 20 peer-to-peer platforms have impacted my personal portfolio allocation. As I was pointing out 5 beneficiaries from recent meetups in the video last week, today's portfolio update will cover also comments on other platforms including Piberry, Eseed, Profitus and Twio. But before we get there, let's start off with a general look at how my peer-to-peer portfolio performed last month. In June, I was able to generate 723 euros from my outstanding peer-to-peer portfolio, which is now the 5th time in the last 6 months where I was able to break through the barrier of 700 euros. In terms of my income on individual platforms, there have been no new records set in the previous month. The best overall performance in my portfolio is delivered by Income Marketplace with 13.34%, followed by Piberry with 12.17% and Via Invest with 11.15%. The Red Lantern remains with Estate Guru, where my performance dropped from 8.6% to now 6.3% over the last 24 months. In June, I had a total of 5 transactions in my peer-to-peer portfolio. I deposited 1,000 euro each to Income Marketplace and Lande, while I was withdrawing 6,000 euros from Eseed, 3,000 euros from Piberry and 400 euros from Twio. More explanations will follow later in the video. The value of my outstanding peer-to-peer portfolio decreased to 90,558 euros in June, which is the biggest monthly decline I had since March 2020. Nevertheless, I am quite confident the 100,000 euro mark will be conquered within the next 2 or 3 months. Next up, let's take a closer look at a few platforms in my portfolio. In June, I withdrew 3,000 euros of uninvested funds from Piberry, which was the first time I had ever taken money off this platform in the past 3 years. The reason for this is the increasing cash drag on the platform, which is due to 2 factors. Firstly, the consistently high demand from investors, and secondly, my non-negotiable limit of at least 10% for consumer loans. As a result of the recently adjusted interest rates, which now range between 9 and 10.5%, the availability of loans to my liking has significantly reduced. According to my discussions with Piberry on site, an improvement in the supply situation is expected only in autumn. But since a bigger supply doesn't necessarily translate into higher interest rates, a further reduction of my Piberry portfolio can't be excluded. In the long term, I would definitely like to keep Piberry as a strong pillar and anchor in my portfolio, but not at all costs. A highlight worth mentioning has been the personal contact with Aventus owner Andreas Trofimovas, who gave some interesting insights into how the company managed to recover from the war in Ukraine, the regulatory situation in Poland, and why Aventus isn't exiting any consumer markets due to failed performances. A similar situation emerged on Eseed, where I withdrew even 6,000 euros of uninvested funds in June. In contrast to Piberry, however, the problem is mainly due to an insufficient supply of loans that match my risk profile. Although I perceive the statements of the Eseed shareholders regarding the situation in Jordan somewhat positively, my preference is clearly in favor of EUR assets. But with a portfolio of 12 million euros, which accounts for around 28% of the total portfolio on Eseed, the proportion of EUR assets is simply too low to satisfy demand from all investors. But on a general note, the same outlook applies as with Piberry. If there is a sufficient supply of suitable assets for me, then Eseed will remain a fixed anchor in my portfolio. If you want to avoid cash drag on both platforms, Income Marketplace might be the best alternative choice for you, with even more lenders piling up to join the platform. In June, Income CEO Lavrenti Tsudakov announced that 5 cooperation agreements have already been signed with potential partners, meaning they have already provided a small financial commitment to move things forward. According to my latest information from the beginning of July, 3 of those 5 lenders are already carrying out IT tests while reviewing Income's framework agreements. A positive signal for investors can be found when looking at the investor assets under management, which now increased by 1 to 1.5 million euros in each of the last 4 months. With a total portfolio of more than 14 million euros, the proportion of loans in recovery is now below 1%, indicating a realistic chance that promoted returns in the double-digit range can be achieved. As for my personal portfolio, I took advantage of the positive momentum and the increasing supply situation on Income and deposited another 1,000 euro in June. Both agricultural platforms in my portfolio, namely Lande and Heavy Finance, were also able to convince me during personal on-site meetings, which is why they ended up on the list of the 5 beneficiaries from my recent stay in the Baltics. Detailed analysis of both platforms, which are now more established in my peer-to-peer portfolio, will follow in the upcoming weeks. On the other hand, the destiny of Lithuanian platform Profitus in my portfolio is yet to be decided. Although I have heard promising things during our conversations, there are also a few issues that I still need to be convinced of. I will therefore wait a few more weeks and decide by the time of the next portfolio update whether Profitus has a future in my portfolio. One of the by far biggest disappointments has been Estate Guru, where the struggles even continued in June. Only around 4 million euros were recovered in the first 5 months of the year, while the defaulted portfolio increased by 4.3 million euros during the same period. So, despite some efforts to recover half of the portfolio, defaults have even outpaced recoveries this year so far. Given the newly introduced fee structure, it's evident that the Estonian platform is struggling a lot to stabilize the company. To avoid the inactivity fee, for which I had already received an email, I financed an Estonian bridge loan with a 12-month term in June. However, this is solely to accumulate funds and cover the €3 withdrawal fee in the meantime. My decision to exit Estate Guru remains unchanged. And finally, let's briefly discuss Twio as well, where the meeting has confirmed my decision to exit the platform. During discussions with Twio CEO Helvi Senselis, it became quite obvious that sole shareholder Armand Brooks is strongly dictating the company's direction, moving away from its core business of financing consumer loans to more conservative assets like real estate projects. Obviously, there is still the opportunity to invest in Polish loans, but the somewhat unpredictable actions by the local regulator might as well end this chapter once new regulatory guidelines will come to force. But irrespective of the developments in Poland, the overall investment profile of Twio is not matching my personal preferences anymore, which is why the platform will be cut from my portfolio. So this has been my portfolio update for the month of June. If you enjoyed watching this video, please do me a favor and click the like button and consider subscribing to this channel for future videos. So long, thanks for watching, and I see you guys again in the next video.